Hello and welcome to a rambling podcast with another bloody critic. I am another bloody critic, Adam Schultz, here as always. And this week I'll be joined by a special guest, Sam Cripps, who will be sort of going over some of his theories and some speculation on the Spider-Man movies coming forward, with Spider-Man Homecoming obviously coming out next week, and I'm sure plenty more Spider-Man movies in the MCU to come. But before we do that, I want to get through this week's review. I'm doing it on my own this week. I certainly wouldn't subject anyone else to have watched this film. But I'm reviewing The House, which is the new movie starring Will Ferrell. So The House, the premise of The House, I suppose, is that Will Ferrell and his wife want to send their daughter to her dream college where she got accepted. And they're relying on a scholarship from their local town in order to send their daughter to college. And the town votes to cut the scholarship money and instead build a swimming pool. So Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler have to then team up with their depressed neighbour and set up an illegal casino in order to raise the money that they need to send their daughter to college. It's not a good movie. It is a horrific movie, actually. It's one of the worst movies I've ever sat through, and certainly the worst one I've ever sat through in a theatre. And this coming from someone who once saw The Pink Panther 2 in a theatre. So this is the level of horrific badness that this movie is. The two leads, Ferrell and Poehler, both extraordinarily funny performers when they're given the right material. Don't have anything in this movie, and even the little bits that might have worked, they both seem so disinterested in the material that it just felt like they were sleepwalking through the entire film. There was no effort, no energy put in at all. Some of the side characters deserve a mention, side actors. All of these, they certainly didn't do enough to make the movie funny, but they sort of at least tried to do the best with what they had, and I appreciate them for that. There was Nick Kroll, again, very funny, usually character actor. He's playing the mayor of this town. I forget what the name of the town they were in, but small town USA. He was the mayor. So he had some funny bits, I suppose, but they certainly weren't that funny. He was paired up for a lot of the movie with Alison Tolman, playing the town's treasurer. You might recognise Tolman from shows such as Fargo. Again, she did the best with what she had, and the other one that did really well with what he had, which wasn't much, was Jeremy Renner, who came in as a mob boss. And you could tell Renner in particular was having fun with what he had. It still wasn't nearly enough to save this movie. But yeah, special mention to Renner. If you've ever heard me do a review, you'll know that I usually like to structure it with positives first and then deal into the negatives. For the first time ever, I think, I might have had this trouble with a movie trolls maybe, but apart from that, there's nothing I can think of, and it's so unusual that there's nothing I can think of that worked with this movie. Nothing at all. I struggle for positives. The closest to a positive note I could give to this movie is that it's only an hour and a half long, so it's over relatively quickly. Nothing worked. Nothing at all. All the jokes in this movie just fall completely flat. There's nothing that's worth laughing at. Some of the jokes are just so juvenile, and some of them are over the top stupid, and some of them are just silly, and some of them have been done by thousands of movies beforehand and done better. So the situation itself, the plot, you might have picked up when I was listing off the plot summary, that the plot itself is ridiculously stupid. It was dumb, it was silly, and there is a difference, I think, between being silly and being funny, and this movie failed to recognise that. It just went straight out stupid. There was conflicts between Nick Kroll and Will Ferrell were the main conflicts. The way it was written wasn't interesting. It was about as interesting as a government budget night. There's just nothing I can say about this movie that would be a recommendation in any way, shape or form. I'm sorry if you're looking forward to this movie and I've bummed you out, but at least now you know. Don't waste your money on this movie. Don't go see this movie. It deserves to be playing to empty theatres around the country. It is just that bad. I'm giving it the lowest score I've ever reviewed for a movie. 0.45 out of 5 for The House. No redeeming factors whatsoever. I don't even know where the 0.45 came from. It's just that I think the things that they did bad could have maybe, if they really, really tried, been done worse. And that's it. So, please ignore the existence of The House. Don't see it. Don't rent it. Don't watch it on Netflix. Don't give this movie any reason to continue to exist. It shouldn't exist. It's a horrible movie. And with that over the way, I'm going to sign off on this review, and I'll be back shortly with special guest Sam Cripps to talk Spider-Man in what should be a much more enjoyable little bit segment of this podcast. Welcome back to a rambling podcast by Another Bloody Critic. I'm still here, Adam Schultz, Another Bloody Critic, and I'm joined by special guest Sam Cripps.
How's it going?
And really good to have you here because we've got a big movie coming out this week in cinemas, Spider-Man Homecoming. It's one I know I've been looking forward to this one for a little while.
Since I saw wait.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Since I saw the trailer, I think it's just really been anticipating this one. And you are a big comic book person, which
yes,
full disclosure, I am not. I've read some Deadpool comics and that's about it.
Well, then you have to come and visit me in the comic store and I'll sort you out with something to read.
Awesome. So I've got you here so we can sort of talk a bit about Spider-Man from a comic perspective, because we've all seen the movies. Everyone's seen those Tobey Maguire movies.
Yep,
the
Sam Raimi ones.
Yes, the Andrew Garfield ones and the new MCU, of course. I think my grandma's even seen the new MCU ones. But I thought I'd ask you, obviously we've seen this Spider-Man already in Civil War, which was that last year? Civil War? Yes, it was.
Yep. Last year now already.
Yes. What were your thoughts as a big Spider-Man fan on the Civil War Spider-Man portrayal?
So the best way to put it is, I liked that we didn't have to sit through another origin straight away. They didn't give us the whole, oh, my uncle's dead again. So we as fans of the comic and as many fans of the movie, we've seen it twice. And of course, all those cartoons over the years, animations, and Marvel renumbering their comics number one every so often and re-putting out that first story, maybe slightly different each time. Still, we know the origin. So the best thing Marvel did was not throw us down another origin path, and introducing him into a film where there's multiple heroes already very much established and fighting, and just basically having him as, oh, we know a kid that can help us out, was very clever, because it means that, one, like I said, we didn't have to sit through that origin, and two, we get to meet a really young Spidey, and it's something that we hadn't seen quite yet with the young Spidey in the films. So it's very, very well done as an introduction to the character.
Yes. No, I definitely, just as from a film perspective, I just really love the way that they just threw him in.
And admittedly, it wouldn't work with all characters.
No, you couldn't do
a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like if you picked someone, you might not even know who this is. A character like Moon Knight.
Yeah, yes. I've never heard of him.
So if you got a character like that and just put him in it, everyone would be going, what is this? And more confusion than anything. If you have a look at Guardians of the Galaxy, and I know that he shows up in number 1 and 2, Howard the Duck.
Yes.
shows up. Most people probably don't even know. Even as I say it, most people will be like, I don't know who that is.
Yes.
Look him up.
Yeah.
Fantastic series of comics and a terrible movie.
Yeah, the
way
terrible
back. Yep.
George Lucas.
Yes, yeah.
directed.
Okay, I liked it, but that's me.
Yeah.
You see a lot of people, even when I went and saw that with friends, I had people go, "Who's that?" So it's cool that they do make nods for comic book people, but I'm glad that they, with Spider-Man, straight up just sort of threw him at you, and it worked.
Yeah, I think you could almost even contrast that with a movie that came out around the same time as Civil War that was much less well received, which was Batman vs Superman.
That film was terrible,
When-
and there's big reasons
yeah.
why.
And one of the things which is certainly not the biggest flaw with the movie at all, but they went back and showed us again, remember, this is Bruce Wayne, his parents got murdered. We've seen that story
Yes,
done
yeah,
over and
definitely.
over again.
They went back to
And,
origins.
yeah.
The other thing they did with that film, and I'll say it with nearly all of DC's films, is they go for very dark and almost political things, where Marvel's all fun and happy and for everyone, where DC goes very dark and happy and dark and sad with political stuff tied in with it, and then don't want to give it the... I mean, I know that Batman v Superman got an MA rating, but
Yes.
even still, they didn't go dark enough with what they were doing. Like, DC need to make up their mind. Are they doing dark films, or are they going to sell them to children? They
Yeah.
can't keep dancing around this
Yeah.
weird thing where they're going, oh, we've got this really awesome idea where we'll make it dark and horrible and moody. Like Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Let's get a bunch of people that kill and murder and do horrible things, but let's not have them kill a single person and fight mud monsters.
Yeah, it was... Well,
Not good.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. But I did like Wonder Woman though, so there is that.
I thought Wonder Woman was where they should have started.
Yeah.
It was just a bit unfortunate about the whole villain having the big terrible CGI blur at the end.
Yeah.
And his moustache peeking through the helmet at all times annoyed the hell out of me. But you know,
well, we'll move back. We'll move back to the world of Marvel. So one thing, if you sort of look on any Facebook comment section or on YouTube or on any internet forum, Twitter, wherever, you see a lot of people, well, I've certainly noticed a lot of people saying in regards to Tom Holland, who played Spider-Man in Civil War and will be taking the role forward in the MCU, that he's more true to the comics. He's probably the most true to the comics Peter Parker and Spider-Man that we've had. So I was wondering, as someone, again, from my perspective, never reading the comments, what makes him more like the comics and, say, Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield in some of the films we've seen?
The first thing for sure is age. I mean, Spider-Man, the way I always remember Spider-Man was always being quite young. He was never just instantly almost... I mean, Tobey Maguire was an adult. He wasn't a young... Even though he was playing a high school or college student, he still came across as an adult, or a young adult, just not as young. I don't know why, but I always associate Spider-Man with being a young kid compared to everyone else, which is why, once again, it works in the MCU, having Tony Stark and all those other mentors and people around him being so much older.
Yes.
Gives you that sense of age gap, and, you know, he's a kid. He's going to be doing things that the others wouldn't, that are silly and nerdy and... I don't know, like he makes jokes about how old Star Wars is. Like, it's just perfect. It's one of those things. He's a child in a grown-up's world who happens to have superpowers.
Yes. And is he, because you touched on that, he's making jokes about Star Wars and stuff, is that sense of humour prevalent throughout his comic runs as well?
Definitely. He got more... It started off, if you're going back all the way back to like the 60s, where if you're starting of Amazing Spider-Man, you sort of have... He's got a sense of humour, but not as much as he eventually ends up. As the series goes on, it's almost like he starts off quite... He's got this horrible sense of he's got to do right because of what's happened to his uncle and all that backstory. But eventually, to cope with that, it's almost as if he comes up with this really warped sense of humour. I mean, most of it is just bad puns, but he does talk a lot and distracts the enemy verbally and just... chatters a lot to distract. The way I notice it a lot lately in comics, him and Deadpool doing a talk battle, I don't know what to call it, a pun off, could possibly be the best and most disastrous thing for the world because it could go on forever.
Yes. So I do want to move on and talk about the villain of this movie. We've seen him in the trailers. Vulture, I believe is his name, portrayed by Michael Keaton in this movie, which is very exciting to see Michael Keaton come back into the superhero world. I know nothing about Vulture, apart from what I've seen in the trailers. Who is he? Why?
So I don't want to spoil this because from what I can tell in the trailer, it is very different where they're going with the Vulture's history. They're showing him as someone that has to clean up after the Avengers, who has to... He basically collects all the rubbish, all the technology left by aliens and Iron Man's armour and all that, because you got to think how many bits and pieces do fall off during these battles. So he picks them up and he's recycling them and using them to further his own technology, and obviously then starts doing bad things, becomes the bad guy. Different because Vulture from the comics, as far as I remember, was always this old crotchety man that basically wanted to steal the youth of Spider-Man and anyone else. He would actually suck their life essence out of them. He was just... Yeah. I mean, he wasn't always done exactly like that, but that's the Vulture that I always remember and always know that, this guy was there to suck the life out of someone. But now, him being a scavenger probably actually makes more sense because a Vulture doesn't really suck the life out of anyone. But being a scavenger to build the tech, I think Marvel has done the right thing by this villain. Where the previous Spider-Man films, especially if you look at the Amazing Spider-Man number 2, they had Electro was the main one, and they kind of turned him into this whimpering, nerdy... Like, they just went the wrong way with it, and it didn't work. I mean, I know they wanted to move away a little bit from what everyone expected, but it just didn't match up quite right. This is it is a big step to change what the villain's main purpose is, but even still, you've still got the villain in the movie as an older man who is, to an extent, no one cares about him except for Spider-Man, because he's that street level problem. So I think that the movie will be fine. I think they've got their character right. I think they've got the best person they could get to play him, and the only thing that I could maybe see is if they don't kill him off, because maybe a Sinister Six or something for the future.
Yes,
they could actually well and truly have him coming back with the whole life-sucking technology.
I'd be very interested because I think, as someone just watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe, villains are probably the area that they've found most of their weaknesses. I think a lot of their villains end up being quite forgettable, and sometimes it serves. Like, my favourite of the Marvel movies is probably Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it's probably my favourite of that cinematic universe that they've done. But the villain in that did nothing. He was just there to further along
the plot.
Ronan.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean,
what they really need, I think, is to really build up an iconic... I mean, they've got Loki.
Definitely. It's funny, we've seen some pretty... I mean, Thanos is the behind-the-scenes guy that we all know will show up for Infinity War and everything. But there are actually some really awesome Marvel villains that they haven't even scratched the surface on. And I know that Sony has announced a Venom movie with the possibilities of Carnage being in it, and they're two big Spider-Man foes that, everyone's kind of freaking out that Sony is still doing weird stuff on the side. But my biggest concern would be is Sony doesn't get the right people to play those two, because those two could be somewhat like... In my mind, Carnage is Marvel's equivalent to the Joker, just pure carnage. It's just chaos. He's just villainous for the sake of villainy. So they need the right person to play these kind of characters, and Marvel has had good villains, but we're yet to see one on screen that has almost stolen the show. Look at Dark Knight, if you look at Heath Ledger's Joker, that stole the movie. Like, no one could care less about Batman in that movie. Everyone wants to be the Joker in that film. Even if you look at Bane, I guess. I mean, a lot of people didn't go much on that film, but the sheer size of Tom Hardy in that as Bane was terrifying. Yet we still haven't had that villain from Marvel that makes you actually go, oh, you know, this is kind of scary.
Yes. Yeah, they're all either done for comedy or just as a plot device.
Yeah, exactly, to move things forward. But, I mean, it worked for Ant-Man. Ant-Man was fantastic. That movie was great. And the villain in that used just... he played the character well, everything was great, but the Yellow Jacket was just, you know, you don't really care about the Yellow Jacket after you've seen the film. There's no reason to ever remember that character.
So this does segue quite well into sort of, because obviously we've got Homecoming coming out, but it's certainly not going to be the last of these Spider-Man movies in the MCU. I mean, I think if Marvel get their way, this is going to go on in perpetuity.
Well, I think someone literally told me the other day, if you count, so you got, he was in Civil War, Homecoming, he's in the 2 Infinity Wars, and he's meant to show up in, I think he's already booked in for a Homecoming 2 sequel.
Yeah, they're booked in 3.
3. So if you, that's 6 to 7 films already that he's coming into, and, you know, good chance he'll show up in some after scene credits and things.
Yes.
So Tom Holland's very lucky. He's got some work for a while.
But so there's so many of these coming out, and I mean, like, a lot of these Marvel movies, they take story arcs from the comics and then sort of do a little twist to them to sort of put their own stamp on it. But most of them are based off of at least existing arcs and obviously existing villains. So what sort of storylines would you like to see Peter Parker go on?
Well, I know that we've got from the street level with the Defenders and everything, and with the Daredevil show and that, we've seen the Punisher, and that was awesome. The Punisher, that whole thing with him showing up fighting Daredevil was just awesome. Next thing we need to see is Spider-Man getting attacked by the Punisher.
Ooh.
And then from that, after those two have had a bit of a tuffle, we can see some of the characters that people wouldn't know, like the Jackal.
Okay.
Because the Jackal's the one that pulls the strings into them all fighting. It'd be cool to see some of these creepy characters that lurk in the background. I'd even like to see some of the heroes that are a bit more, like I mentioned Moon Knight before. Love to see him show up. A Spider-Man Moon Knight team up would be fantastic, especially because Moon Knight has some very, very deep mental health issues.
Okay.
So that could be really interesting, seeing a young kid having to deal with not only he's an anti-hero, I guess, the Punisher, someone who's trying to kill him and pretty much will do nothing but try to stop him, and then having this guy with mental health issues in the middle of them trying to stop them from fighting, and then this creature called the Jackal in the background pulling all the strings could just, I don't know, I think it'd be a really fun thing to see play out on the big screen.
It sounds like, because as someone who's seen all these Spider-Man movies, and that's my knowledge of Spider-Man, it seems a lot of the time he comes up against villains that perhaps a bit more corporate in the movies. You spend a lot of time with
the corporate crime. He's very much, and it's funny because now, only recently in the comics, he's now one of these people himself where he owns Parker Industries. He's now Iron Man. I mean, it's only taken him since the 60s to finally grow up into a man and have his own business. But yeah, he straight up ends up becoming a Tony Stark. And it's funny because 99% of the problems Spider-Man fights is because they're from these big industries where they make problems and mistakes and whatever, and he ends up doing the same thing and creating more villains along the way by doing the same thing that they did.
But it does sound like you would be hanging out to see more of this sort of street level.
I really want to see some more of the street level stuff. Only because, as much as the big cinematic stuff is amazing to see, and like the visual effects stunning, and all the actors are just, you know, worth thousands and thousands, so they get these crazy contracts and that. I want to see more stuff like that Punisher Daredevil. Just some more gritty fights on the street. And like I said, Moon Knight would be a great character to see do that. But another one that you could get to come down and do some more street level stuff would be She-Hulk. Show, and that'd be a great way to tie, because I know that eventually the Hulk will have to. I mean, some of these actors are now coming to the ends of contracts and all kinds of things. So they could do a Planet Hulk movie and do Hulk as CGI and have him CGI the whole time, or have him donating blood to a cousin who's dying and do a She-Hulk. Have her on the street trying to be a lawyer, and she's green, you know. And it's funny, she's a woman dealing with being a woman in a man's industry, and she's struggling in the corporate world, and, you know, on top of all that, she happens to be one of the strongest people that lives. So it'd be just, I reckon it'd be a lot of fun.
Yes. So I guess this does sort of segue nicely into something else I wanted to bring up with sort of these future plots. In that, like, this one, obviously we see this in Homecoming, we're obviously going to see Spider-Man team up with Tony Stark and Iron Man doing, which makes sense from where the characters were left off at the end of Civil War. But obviously Marvel and the MCU have this huge wealth of characters that they can pair up, and they seem to be pairing up characters more and more often. So you've mentioned people like She-Hulk and like
Moon Knight.
I was about to say Moonlight. I'm like, that's not right.
Moonlight, yeah, that's a good one. That's a new one. Look out, Marvel, coin that.
But which ones, perhaps of some of the bigger ones that we might have seen in the movies, which ones would you think Spider-Man would work well being paired with?
So we want to see Spider-Man, I've said Punisher, Moon Knight, She-Hulk. You know what? They've done a lot of Young Avengers style stuff in the comics. I can't think of the team that they're with at the moment, but you could see Spider-Man teaming up with Miss Marvel. Especially the new Miss Marvel.
Yes, because that's coming with Brie Larson.
Yes.
He's another young up-and-coming actor.
She's getting more and more trilogy roles, I guess you could say. Everything she seems to do becomes a franchise.
Yes.
So it'd be cool to see him end up either going one or two ways. Like I keep saying about the street level stuff, is you can actually see him go the complete dealing with all these things from out of the world. Like the Kree need to fly down and are attacking Earth, and you've got this kid who's like, well, I'm now dealing with an alien invasion. Having those kind of big galactic characters come in. I don't want to give anything away, but a character called Star Fox and stuff like that showing up could be really interesting. Nova, we've seen the Nova Corp. We've seen the Nova Corp helmets and stuff. I'm going to guess that within the Infinity War movies, Nova Corp's going to be destroyed. Seeing that helmet float down and pass on to Earth, and you get the hero Nova from it all, would be a cool one to sort of see on screen. And the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
If Marvel eventually managed to get the rights back and save... we don't want to talk too much about that movie, but, you know, save what they did.
Yes.
Save them from what Sony did. And give
that
us...
was Fox.
We
should lay blame where it belongs.
Fox and Sony, the two of them need to be careful from now on, because they both have got rights to certain things that we all wish they wouldn't. But it'd be after Fox's last attempt. I think they just need to be smart and make a deal, because if they want to make any money out of it, I mean, look at Spider-Man. They've made the deal. Spider-Man's now making everyone money. So why not be smart about it and jump on the bandwagon
and
while it's rolling?
It is little known that I believe it's Universal actually have the same deal with the Hulk, because they own the Hulk after that Eric Banner.
After that first one, we won't talk about that either. I mean, okay, no, that was actually not a bad film for its time. Now you watch it and it's pretty hard on the eyes with the CGI and everything, but the story was so long and dry in that one, and I don't know why they didn't try and focus more on some of the fun stuff from the comics with the Hulk. They sort of went straight up for this dramatic, sort of like Days of Our Lives Hulk vibe, which, I mean, I remember seeing it in the cinema, and I actually made jokes through the movie, and I don't do that. I get angry if I hear people talking. I couldn't believe it.
But no, there's so much potential with Spider-Man, but we have to touch on it. It's probably my least favourite part of these Spider-Man movies, but it's iconic and lots of people do enjoy it, is the sort of personal life of Peter Parker.
Yeah.
We had the Tobey Maguire movies, which sort of went with the Mary Jane line,
Yes.
and then the Garfield ones went with the Gwen Stacy storyline. It looks like they're doing Mary Jane again.
They're actually doing another Love Life as well. There's another character that they're going to introduce that we have seen a little bit, not in any of the movies, but apparently she was rumoured to be in another one of the movies. I don't really want to give it away because I think it's something that you all enjoy out of Homecoming. I think they're going to dive into his dating life with a different character that, if for people that read the comics will remember, there's what I call the three loves of Peter Parker. There's his like high school crush, then there's Gwen, who does die, and then the person that saves him after all that was Mary Jane. That sort of, you know, brings this kid out of some what we'll call a depressing series of events. But yeah, as far as I always recall, there was the three loves, and I think we'll see the first crush for the first time.
Oh, well, that will be interesting to see. And I think you are right in that we will be delving a little bit into the personal life, because Marvel have billed this as a John Hughes-esque movie, which people don't know who John Hughes is. He did things like The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller.
Imagine The
16
Breakfast
Candles.
Club, but with a bunch of kids in web slingers. That's what we're going to get.
So thank you for listening. We've run out of time. We've been kicked out of our little room here. So thank you for coming in and talking Spider-Man with us, Sam. Is there anyone you want to plug?
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to my website, so www.nerdsparadise.com.au. We sell figures and toys and collectibles. You can always message us on Facebook if you're after anything. And then also Adelaide's Gamma Ray Comics. Come in, say hello, and I'll get up with some Spider-Man comics.
Awesome. And you can find me at Twitter at @ABloodyCritic. We'll go wrap this up because otherwise security are going to get cross at us. But thank you for listening. I'll see you next week with a review of Spider-Man and some cool discussions on Edgar Wright. So keep an eye out for that. See ya.
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.